In the aftermath of the terror bombing in Boston this past Monday, there are those who demand political correctness and they seek to limit who should be looked at as a possible perpetrator. Others jump at the first crumb they see on the table and embrace that as a finite conclusion. We're going to spend some time examining this attack, starting with the people who are responsible based upon what we know, at least up to this point. And to do that, we turn to a terrorism and radical Islam expert who himself had once been an activist for the Muslim Brotherhood. He's now the research director for the Forum for Middle East Understanding. His latest book is The Case for Islamophobia, Jihad by the Word, America's Final Warning. We say good morning to Walid Shoebat. Good morning, Mr. Shoebat.
Good morning.
Shoebat, SHOEBAT.com is Mr. Shoebat's website. You can find out more. Certainly much more valuable information than what we saw some of the media provide with us this past week. When we learned about the origins of the two brothers in Boston, most people were surprised. It's been a long time since we heard Chechnya, and the initial reports were saying that the brothers were from Chechnya, but that did not turn out to be completely accurate, correct?
No, they're originally from Kyrgyzstan, born in Kyrgyzstan, southern republics of Russia, which are the Islamic parts of Russia that split from Russia. They are called the CIS nations, the Commonwealth of Independent States. But it's a problem if we look at the micro-analysis. We need to look at the larger picture. These guys are jihadists, which really fits the bill for any jihadist globally, whether they're Saudi, whether they are Iraqi, whether they are, from Lebanon. You look at his affiliations and his mindset. I'm always interested in the mindset of the terrorist. I'm not so much interested in the drug addict himself. I'm interested who was a drug pusher. If we go to his favorites, the favorites for Mr. Tamerlan Tsarnaev, we find out very alarming information. His favorite is Sheikh Faiz Muhammad, born 1970-71, Australian Muslim preacher of Lebanese descent, formerly the head of the Global Islamic Youth Center in Liverpool. That's in Australia. So this guy, was recruited basically or inspired by a vibrant cleric akin to Anwar Awlaki, very much. He was featured, in fact, in a British television documentary called The Undercover Mosque, in which he recruits the youth. So this is the kind of perfect specimen for Sheikh Faiz Muhammad, who is a Wahhabi, So his ideology stems from Saudi Arabia, so we have to look at the full picture here. And of course, we've written reports about some Saudis, possibly we suspected, which the FBI says didn't do it. However, we still need to look at that as well. In fact, First Lady Michelle Obama visited the Saudi who was in the hospital, who's very concerning as well to me, because three of his relatives, one of them is the leader of Al-Qaeda in Yemen, after he was released from Gitmo, and the other was a leader of Al-Qaeda in Syria, was killed last year, and another, Al-Harbi, Adil Al-Harbi, who there's warnings from the U.S. government itself, was an Iran-based senior Al-Qaeda facilitator. The way this terrorist looks at the central source of jihad, he looks at what they call Khorasan, which is central in Iran, as well as the southern republics of Russia, which his country is from, as the nation that will produce the Mahdi. So this is a Mahdist mentality, in which they believe that the Mahdi will come to rule the whole world. You listen to all the songs and all the things, and you can rest assured this is a typical jihadist, Islamist terrorist. And let's not focus on him speaking Russian or whatever. We're not looking for a communist here. We're looking for a Muslim fundamentalist.
And actually, I believe it's been scrubbed since by no one. The Drudge report on Friday, they had whatever the equivalent is in whichever Russian country it was. It was an equivalent to a Facebook page for Dzhokhar, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And under his worldview, in his personal info on that page, it listed his worldview as Islam.
Yes, he's Muslim. And all Muslims, regardless. They believe in Mahdism. So it doesn't matter if you believe the Muslim is peaceful or not. Those are not the issues when it comes to this eschatological mentality of a jihadist. They all believe in the Mahdi, whether it's Shia, whether it's Sunni. It's a misconception in the West to think that Islamic Messianism is void from the Sunnis. That's not true. We can see the case here. And you can see the links he enjoys very much, which is Islamic Mahdi. And he believes that the Islamic Messiah or the Islamic Mahdi comes from his region. So, you got this video with the songs. In fact, as you called me, I was translating the words of the song on the video, one of his favorites. It's pretty alarming. It talks about that the world is all theirs. Islam dawned on us as our religion, and the whole globe is our nation. So the whole world belongs to Islam. To unify Allah is our light. We prepared our soul to reside with Him. He's talking about jihad, of course, prepare your soul to die as a martyr. The world is gone, but not wiped out, and it goes on and on and on. Talking about Mahdism. So we're dealing with the typical Mahdist mentality, an Islamic mentality that has been recruited by one of the most vibrant preachers, Sheikh Faiz Muhammad, who is Lebanese origin, in Arab, Wahhabist, who is akin to the education from Saudi Arabia. And that's pretty clear, That's what he has as his favorites. That's what he watches. That's what's basically instilling his fervor in jihad. And that's the typical mindset, exactly as we predicted. Who's behind the terrorist attack? I'm in record to have stated that this is a typical jihadi operation, and very likely they have others involved. But I think we should not dismiss the Saudi involvement in this whole affair. Uqaz, the Saudi newspaper, stated that the United States says no Saudi will be charged. That's before these guys were chased. How would they know who's behind it anyway? So we have an influx of Saudi students, sevenfold in the last 7 years.
I believe the total I saw was 100,000 currently in the country.
Correct. And it used to be 12,000 under Bush. Now it's 100,000, 70 to 100,000. This is very frightening and very alarming because when you have this kind of numbers coming from Muslim countries into the United States, you are going to have trouble, major trouble, and it's not going to end here. It's going to continue on.
Walid Shoebat, who is the author of the book, The Case for Islamophobia, Jihad by the Word, America's Final Warning, is also research director for the Forum for Middle East Understanding, Shoebat.com on the web, and you're listening to Issues and Ideas. Superficially, albeit, but when I hear about the profile of these two brothers, how they had the best of clothes, best of athletic training, they were driving before the one they carjacked that night on Thursday night to Friday morning, they were driving a Mercedes SUV. I don't know too many college kids who can afford that kind of stuff. And maybe the first thing I thought when I heard that was, well, when these quote-unquote mosques do their recruiting, you tend to walk out of those mosques with a lot more money than you walk in with sometimes.
Well, yeah, I don't tend to analyze things the way Western analysts portray things. Whether they drive a Mercedes, whether they drive a junk car, whether they're educated, uneducated, wealthy, poor, is absolutely meaningless. I've written a book, Why We Want to Kill You, in which I analyze all these false Western analysis and prove them wrong beyond shadow of a doubt. That the terrorist mindset is not a Lone Ranger. This is not a Ted Kaczynski kind of mindset. It is a communal mindset. In fact, if you look at Khalid al-Dawsari, who is a Saudi, the entire government of Saudi Arabia is mandating we release him. So you have kingdoms behind the release of terrorists. You look at the websites. You could never find a Kaczynski clan that supports Ted Kaczynski.
No.
But that's not the case when it comes to Muslim terrorists. You find Dawsari clan supports Dawsari. You find the Ghamidi clan supports the Ghamidis that carried out the 9/11 attack. So we need to understand the mindset is much bigger than we think.
One thing that we learned from the killing of bin Laden that even if, I mean, you always want your suspect to survive so you can first and foremost find out why, and also a lot of times the people with the brave covers are really cowards looking to defend themselves, and they wind up being good sources of information, and you can connect a lot more dots and move investigations further. Is that
right?
true?
I don't agree with that notion. I don't agree with having them, catching them, survive. I believe in killing them as you spot them. I believe in total annihilation of terrorists.
That's otherwise. I was going to say, comparing the Italian mafia to a terrorist cell, are the terrorists less likely to do what we saw the underlings in the mafia do, where once they got caught, they say, well, maybe I can save myself and get out of this. The terrorists don't take that attitude.
No, not at all. In fact, you look at the continuation of what the brothers are doing. They're both very suicidal. An Islamic terrorist is very suicidal because he wants to die. It's not just, I used to be a terrorist myself. It's not just we wanted to kill you. It's why we wanted to die as well, because in the Islamist mentality, by the first drop of the martyr's blood, he enters paradise, and he becomes an intercessor for 70 members of his family. So salvation in this Islamic mindset, the jihadist salvation is by shedding their own blood, by dying, by sacrificing their life. So you're not dealing with a person who's going to have remorse. You're going to put him through education. I mean, they tried that before. You look at the case of Hammam Khalil al-Balawi, who killed CIA agents. He went through a reformation course with crayons and so on and so forth in Jordan, and he was supposed to have been re-recruited back to normality. And yet I was the first to examine his Arabic language, and on his blog he stated very clearly he intends to blow himself up. And in fact he wrote it in a very poetic fashion, and how he killed the CIA agents. And that was predetermined before he killed the CIA agents. So where's the CIA looking into that mentality and looking at that blog before they even met with the guy?
Or we saw him down at Fort Hood, Major Nadal. I mean, he hindsight being whatever it is, he wasn't exactly secretive about his views.
Not at all. In fact, even after him, Private Sergeant Abdo, who condemned Islamophobes like myself, yet he accused everyone who tries to expose this mentality as Islamophobic. He himself wanted to carry out a terrorist attack akin to Nidal Malik Hassan to kill more Americans. And this is in a secluded area. There's not many Muslims there. I get criticized by CNN for speaking at areas that there's no Muslims, yet Fort Hood is a great example. There's not many Muslims at Fort Hood, yet you had 13 Americans killed at Fort Hood. And when we tried to expose the mentality, we were even attacked by Killeen, Texas. The Department of Commerce and all of these went against us for trying to expose the mindset of terrorists. This is the kind of problem we face, and this is the kind of results we get more than Americans, because no one wants to educate Americans of what really is going on. Because in America today, if you address the Islamic terrorist mindset, you're a racist, you're an Islamophobic. So you're the one that gets attacked, while the terrorist kind of goes under the radar and plans what he wants to do. And it's not only the explosive act, it's the political activism by that movement, the slick willies that enters into the government apparatus. There's no difference between Faisal Abdul Rauf, the man behind the Ground Zero Mosque, and Anwar Awlaki. The difference is one says, I will do it by an explosive act. The other says, I will do it by political activism and a Trojan horse activism, and turn to the government arena and begin to emphasize that America must become Sharia compliant. I mean, who coined the term Sharia compliant? It was the man behind the Ground Zero Mosque. And then when the Americans rejected the idea of the mosque on Ground Zero, he got on the media and he said, I'm very concerned about your air traffic. What is that all about? That's a warning. You're not submitting to Islam. And if you don't submit to Islam, you will have terrorism. Don't blame us when you get terrorized.
And you certainly know with the Muslim Brotherhood, their modus operandi is to infiltrate, lie if you have to infiltrate, and then overtake.
Right. Play the good cop, bad cop. Now, this guy's the bad cop at Boston. They're the good cop. In fact, even the person who influenced him said, we should. He condemned the violence that went on after the movie The Innocence of Muslims. This is Faiz, the inspirational preacher who inspired these terrorists. That sounds good. He condemned the violence in Egypt regarding the movie The Innocence of Muslims. Wow, that seems to be very positive. But then in the same token, what did he say? He says that the youth must prepare their souls to die for the cause of Allah, give their souls as a sacrifice for Islam, to become soldiers for Allah and defend Islam. Sheikh Faiz said, plant jihad in their heart, dying, sacrificing one's life for Islam. So you can't even say the word Islam without getting into trouble these days. But how can we understand the terrorist mindset who says he's Muslim? So
and you have an administration who has removed the phrase "war on terror" from all its documents and reports to the United Nations. And as all this goes on, the 6-year-old little white girl born in America still gets patted down at the airport.
Correct. And the whole thing with TSA, I stand on TSA all the time, and I ask the person next to me, why are we in this long line? For just to check, make sure, for security reasons. Security from what, I ask? There's trouble. What trouble? Terrorism. Well, what terrorism are you talking about? 9/11. Well, who was involved in 9/11? Terrorists. Well, what kind of terrorists? Nobody wants to say.
Yeah, I know.
Islamic terrorists. So, Americans stand on TSA, never question why they stand on TSA. They're just like sheep to the slaughter.
He is the research director for the Forum for Middle East Understanding, his latest of many books that are educational, and they give you the honesty and the insight that too many in our so-called elected leadership are in dire need of. His latest book is The Case for Islamophobia, Jihad by the Word, America's Final Warning. The website, Shoebat, Shoebat, Shoebat.com. Walid Shoebat, thank you so much for being here this morning.
You bet. Thank you for having me.